What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to talk about the overall market and break down the formations that are forming on SPY, SPX, Tesla, and just a couple of other tickers. I also want to break down something very important that Jerome Powell said and make a very important video about how this all could play out going into next week. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things real quick. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $50 cash reward. And the offer ends in just about 6 days. So check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. How are things looking? So looking at the charts, things were very, very crazy today. If we go on the 5-minute time frame on SPY, this thing was just all over the place. In the morning, the market was trying to get this rebound because based off technicals and looking at our EMAs, the market was due for that little gap up. I was talking about this yesterday. And then I told you all that we're going to watch what happens after Jerome Powell speaks because it was very, tricky to predict exactly what the market would do. The market got this little spike right here, and this was actually a liquidity grab because of these levels right here, which were acting as stops. So these were stops set by a lot of like retail investors or others out there, and they basically tried to tag these levels and they pumped the market just a little bit to grab that liquidity. That's exactly what those, individuals or institutions did. And then in doing so, right, they got this little liquidity grab. This is where they got ready to short and they smacked the market down after Jerome Powell's comments. So we had a big pump and a big smackdown, but look at where they smacked the market down, right? A lot of people that had been buying would have been buying like right around this dip right here. This dip happened to be around this like 436 area. This was like the low we made from yesterday. And then if you keep going down on the charts, we basically had this low right here, which would have been like the stops. So people set stops around like probably around like 435.3 or maybe something like that. This is where they were trying to buy and they had the stops just to save them in case the market dropped lower. So they basically triggered this stop right here. They triggered the stops that many investors were setting. So they screwed over people on both sides. This is all part of their plan. And they dropped it a little bit more, getting those stops in, right? Just around 435, just a little bit over 435. And then we got this monstrous bounce after that from 435 all the way up to about 441.3. Pretty crazy bounce on SPY after that. We closed just around max pain, very close to max pain. And they did this intentionally to try to squeeze those shorts and cause pain for them. So it was very interesting to witness. But now the question is the market going to turn bullish? Are we about to see this like bullish accumulation play out that's going to lead SPY to breaking? Well, 442 is going to be our key level. We want to see if this could break or not. If this breaks next week, 444 could be on the table. But there's one problem with making an analysis like that. And that is, first off, when you look at SPY, we have this head and shoulders like pattern that has been developing over the last couple of days. We have a potential left shoulder, the head, and then like the right shoulder that could be developing right here at this resistance. And this is going to be very key for how we're looking at this market as well. So I'm going to be watching all of this carefully. I think it's very important that we look at how the market responds to these different levels. And looking at this from like a Fibonacci standpoint, I mean, we could technically draw out this entire channel from like right here, going from this low to the top. I mean, we're still not necessarily that close to where it happens to be, but like the 0.382 retracement level happens to be at the 442 zone. So like I said before, I mean, we're getting very, very close to that key level at 442. If we reject off of that, we could be establishing a micro-sized head and shoulders. But here's the thing about this head and shoulders that's so interesting. This whole head and shoulders that's forming could actually be just the right shoulder of another giant head and shoulders that's been forming on SPY. I'm going to zoom out on the 4-hour time frame just to show you what this could be looking like. So I want to clean this chart up and just keep it like this. Looking at it like this, right? So I called out this possible like head and shoulders right here, right? This small one right here, you guys could see it. Zoom out of the chart and check this out. It's looking like there's also a larger one that's developing right now. We were talking about this on SPX. This could be a left shoulder around 444 that formed right here. It's kind of like slanted a bit. This could be a giant head. And then this could be like a right shoulder that's forming. And as we're forming this right shoulder, right? We have a mini-sized Head and Shoulders that could be developing too. So it's a Head and Shoulders within a Head and Shoulders. How crazy is that on SPY? Now, if it plays out, we need to see first off if SPY rejects off 442 around that area for the mini Head and Shoulders. If that happens, you know, that's going to cause SPY to start sinking to much lower levels. What's going to cause that? We're yet to find out if it's going to be some kind of bad news, another bank failure. Who knows what it's going to be? But there's also the possibility of the bigger one. So if we have this bigger one that could play out, we could technically see SPY go to like 444 to like 445 and still end up rejecting and coming all the way down. So it really depends on if this will play out. If we break above 442 and we start holding, there's a possibility of us invalidating this mini Head and Shoulders right here. So this mini one right here. And if we keep going, then we're going to be watching this top right here. So are we going to be developing the right shoulder or not? That's what's going to be the next question. If we get the rejections, okay, it does not mean we have to just go crashing all the way down to these lower levels. It does not mean that whatsoever. It basically tells us that the market could still see some downside. It's going to be completely normal, but we're at these very, very key levels, which are going to have to be tested and watched for. So what I mean by that is looking at the market, we have this next level, the 430 zone. I would say 431 specifically is the level, but it's very close to 430. So that's going to be the very, very key level on SPY. It needs to hold that for this thing to maintain these levels. If it ends up breaking below 430 in the future, right, this thing could start sinking into the 420s. But don't worry about the 420s until we break below 431 to 430. That's what's going to be coming first. That's some very strong support. So I want to make that as clear as possible. Okay, so do we have to break down? The answer is no. There are no guarantees in the market. Sometimes these formations could be just like really, really tricky. And the best thing to really watch for would be how this ends up playing out. So let me just switch to the 30-minute instead. Do we see this Head and Shoulders play out, or do we see like the bigger one play out? We're going to be watching for the test going into next week. That is going to be pivotal for SPY moving forward. For SPX, this is going to be another very important one. Looking at SPX, it's basically the same thing. SPX has a possible Head and Shoulders that has been developing on it. If it gets this big rejection right here and starts selling off, that could start the sell-off very, very soon. And then also, on the much larger time frames, I was drawing this out a couple of days ago. There could be another Head and Shoulders that's dictating SPY right now, right? So you could draw this out very, very simply. We have a possible. Actually, I already had this drawn out, but basically we could see something like this play out if we do end up breaking below this level right here. This is forming kind of like a Head and Shoulders like pattern as well on SPX. It all depends on whether or not it breaks or not, but it so far is holding up quite nicely. And this could take us to lower levels for like to the September period before the market bounces and tries to recover. It's just a risk I have for everyone out there. And then this happens to correlate with Tesla. Tesla happens to be following this trend. We have this very interesting looking setup on Tesla. So what's good about Tesla is we got this nice breakout, but one thing that you will notice is that it might be forming a Head and Shoulders. I will talk more about Tesla a little bit later on. It could be forming a Head and Shoulders. If this does play out, it's not going to be good for the bulls. Tesla could see some downside if this does end up playing out. So we're seeing Head and Shoulders all over the place on SPY. SPX is dictating SPY, of course. On Tesla as well. We also have a similar formation on the QQQ, which I will talk more about tomorrow, but I just want to make it clear there are going to be some important tests going into next week for all these different stocks, and you want to watch these levels very carefully. But what did Jerome Powell say? I think I forgot to talk too much about this. I forgot to mention, basically, Powell didn't say anything that was too crazy. He said inflation was too high and they're prepared to raise rates further. He just said the same thing over and over again. Their goal is still 2%. He mentioned that the Fed has to be a little bit more restrictive, so he was a little bit more hawkish, but nothing he said was out of the ordinary. We knew everything from the past. He didn't really crash the markets or cause the market to explode. Everything he said was known before, and that's the reason why the market was just so volatile in the beginning. He was a little bit more hawkish, which is why we saw the market drop at first, but then it started to bounce because nothing he said was new. And the market makers wanted to push us up. to squeeze shorts. Now, I wasn't really around during the intraday time frame to talk about it. I would have warned you guys about this possibility, but I was gone. Unfortunately, I'm back now. I'm going to continue to make videos for tomorrow and beyond. But when I was away, the market continued to squeeze, and we ended up breaking some key levels. And I warned you all that if we broke particular levels on SPY, the market could start pushing. We broke above 438, and that was a bullish signal. We had some bullish technicals as well, which pushed us all the way back up above 440. So very interesting to witness. The 4-hour 50 EMA has been acting as resistance. We're going to be watching this as well. And let's see, do we establish this head and shoulders like pattern, which is going to cause the market to get rug pulled, or are we going to see this be invalidated if we do continue to break out? This will depend on the news, the catalyst, and other factors like that. So be prepared and do what you have to do, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow to talk more about the QQQ and a couple of other things. All right. Anyways, have a great day. Enjoy the weekend. I want to keep this one nice, short, sweet, and simple. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.